Welcome back, everybody. Today we will be discussing the Yeezy 350 Bred. Specifically, we'll be discussing whether you should sell or hold the Yeezy 350 Bred and why that is. To preface this, if you guys enjoy these types of videos regarding the market, reselling, and even info on how to acquire these limited products, be sure to subscribe and enable post notifications just so you're always 100% updated. Furthermore, for more urgent updates like shock drops or raffles, site lists, follow my Twitter, KeithAdam10, and also personals for you. This way you're always in the loop 24/7 whenever there is a restock or drop. For those who don't know, the Yeezy 350 Bred drops on December 5th for $220. This is actually a re-release from their initial drop on February 11th, 2017. Back when these first dropped, they were one of the most sought after Yeezy 350 V2s. These were initially supposed to have their re-release in 2019, but this ended up never happening. Now the time has finally come in 2020 though. In order to determine if the Yeezy 350 Bred will be a fruitful hold, we will cover an estimated range of what the sneaker will settle at after the drop, as well as when shipments come in, essentially the pairs going into circulation, whether they're expected to increase post-drop or even hypothetically decrease, along with how much specifically, and finally, what type of margin are we looking at in terms of holding, not the retail to resell initial margin, but rather just a hold margin over X period of time. Essentially, is this really worth your time? Kicking it off, let's discuss the estimated range that these should settle at right before the drop. So to begin with, regarding stock, since this is not a Nike item, I cannot confirm the exact number myself, but according to Pirates, stock is going to be over 575,000 pairs. This is certainly a vast amount. Evidently, demand on these though is still very high based off the prices they were sitting at prior to the re-release announcement. Demand on the Yeezy 350s always tends to be high in general too. The reason we don't usually see extremely high resale is of course due to the massive stock we normally see, such as the very high carbon stock that we saw. However, this is certainly no ordinary Yeezy 350. Not only is this an all-black Yeezy 350, which garnered significant demand in itself, but the Bred colorway specifically carries a ton of hype deriving from that 2017 initial release. So it's quite evident that these are certainly going to be very profitable with a very good margin in all sizes, despite the very high stock. So if you are skeptical of going for these because of that high stock, please don't. Go full throttle, get as many as you can. Now, regarding a specific range though, since we are 2 days out from the drop as of me recording this, we have already experienced the vast majority of the decline in price from pre-sellers. Not only the early pairs, but also many people dumping their 2017 pairs late in case they weren't in the loop earlier. Over the past 30 days, they have decreased on average of about 52 to 56% depending on the size. This is an abnormally high rate of decrease. In fact, this is even higher than the 40% decrease rate of the Yeezy 500 that we saw just a few days ago. The 12 to 16% additional difference illustrates the mass amount of demand that these initially had, more so than the 500s. That, in addition to the fact that it's known that these will have very, very high stock compared to the 500s. These initially appreciated by a significant amount as well, then the re-release was announced, and now they have come down below the amount that they initially resold for. Although the rate of decrease was abnormal, I do feel it is justified due to what I just discussed. In fact, unlike the 500s, I do still think that these may potentially even have some more room to decrease in value, simply due to the massive stock. This won't really matter though, and we'll discuss that later. Therefore, I do not believe that these are more oversold than they should be. For that reason, I'm not expecting an unusual rapid increase post-drop. I do believe this is a pretty reasonable amount for them to be settling around. In fact, I do think that these have a little more room to go still. Giving it 1.5 more days from when I'm making this video, that would equate to about a 3.2% decrease still, since the average rate of decrease would be 1.8% per day. But since this decrease was not linear though, we can estimate that the next day and a half is really only worth about 2% and not the 3.2% if it were hypothetically linear. Of course, without having to do any calculus, this is just an estimate. Because keep in mind that the decrease was significantly more rapid at the start of the announcement compared to what it is now, of course. Hence, it's not really worth the 3.2% rate. This would leave us at around $380 to $385 right before the drop. And again, this may be $10 to $15 off or so, but you get the gist of it. Post-drop, we will experience what I like to refer to as the impulsivity effect. This is regardless of a sneaker being oversold or overbought. Sneaker drops specifically impact human impulsiveness significantly after an individual fails to acquire that desired product due to insufficient supply and too much demand. Therefore, on average, we normally see an average of 10% increase of the pre-drop prices post-drop. Now, this isn't always the case, but the majority of the time it is. I mentioned this in my video for the 500s, and we saw that exactly happen, just around 9 to 12% rather. I do expect that to be the same for these as well. They certainly have enough demand for it. Assuming an average of a 10% increase, sizes should settle around $420 on average after the US sites do sell out. But now, numbers aside, I can personally see them going for slightly lower than that, strictly from anecdotal experience, but regardless, you guys get the gist. Even if it's $10 to $20 off or so, it won't make a significant difference, but the main point is that they should be a little bit higher than that $380 range. Keep this number in mind because we'll be revisiting this number when discussing when the most optimal times to sell out are, because this number will not remain constant. Now let's discuss what prices will look like once shipments go out in the 1 to 2 week range. Now during this period, the vast majority of pairs will be going into circulation, aside from the 2017 pairs already in circulation, and some early pairs and some in-store stock as well. Considering the stock is absolutely immense on these, this will certainly have a pretty drastic effect, but nothing to concern over in terms of resale. Again, you should still definitely be able to profit off of these, believe me. Considering this stock is higher than usual for these, I do estimate that we may potentially even dip below what they were actually going for right before the drop, perhaps as much as 10% lower than that price. That price was $380 to $385, which leaves the potential settling price at, minus the 10%, at $340 to $350 after the impulsivity effect and after pairs go into circulation. Now, you must also keep in mind that this is not a Nike product. I don't have the exact stock numbers myself. Assuming the stock numbers Pirates announced is correct, which they should be, this should be what we see in about 2 weeks or even potentially 3 weeks. Now that the average price ranges at those points in time are evident though, let's discuss whether they're expected to increase post-drop or even hypothetically decrease, along with how much specifically over specific periods of time. Traditionally, Yeezys with high demand that have decent resale already always tend to rise. The only time this isn't the case is when they're overbought or overvalued. We saw this on the Yeezy 350 Frozen Yellow. Even before the next re-release was announced, regardless of that variable, they were already depreciating in value. I do not expect this to be the case with the Yeezy 350 Bred. In fact, quite the contrary. Due to the high stock, we'll be seeing a significant amount of quick sellers dumping their pairs. Additionally, the resale value isn't that high, at around potentially only $340 to $350 when they settle, leaving more than sufficient room for these to increase over time, unlike the Frozen Yellows, which were around $600 after that re-release, which was nearly double the price of these. Hence, you should expect these to definitely increase over time. Specifically, I'm not expecting a rapid increase though. In fact, over the first several months, we should see these plateau for a little while, essentially no significant changes at all. However, I do estimate that within 6 to 8 months, we'll begin to see their gradual increase. For the 500s, I did mention a potential 5% increase per month, but I don't think that this will be the case for these, specifically due to the high stock on these. I think it'll take much longer to see that much of a difference, so perhaps around 2% of an increase per month starting in 6 to 8 months. I don't expect these to get back to the 800 900 range that they used to be at anytime soon, at least not for the next 4 years. And finally, regarding the hold margin on these, what's most important, essentially the price you could have gotten versus the hold price in say 12 to 14 months, basically, is this worth your time? And as much as I love this colorway, guys, I really don't think it is. So while yes, these will increase, there are going to be much better holds out there than this. I don't think that these are worth your time compared to those other potential holds. If you really want some solid margin holds, feel free to check out this video right here, along with a further breakdown of what I'm discussing right now. For this reason, I would suggest trying to capitalize off the impulsivity effect that we were discussing earlier from the drop. So right after these do sell out, try to capitalize off those very, very high prices, as I don't expect them to change by a notable amount that is going to be worth your time. In conclusion, yes, I do believe that these will go up, but I will be quick selling these personally just because I know my money is better spent holding some other product that should see a much better increase marginally. This primarily derives from the fact that there's extremely high stock for these, of course. However, there is one exception. If hypothetically these do plummet to more than I am predicting, then they will be worth your time. If these do dip below $300, perhaps in the $280 to $290 range, then I'll be probably holding on to these because that is a pretty significant difference difference. If that does hypothetically occur, I'll be holding on to these. I'm mentioning this because I do think it's important for me to acknowledge the potential scenario in which I am wrong regarding the post-drop increase and where I think they will end up settling. If I am correct though, these are pretty high after the drop. At the numbers I did mention, I'm definitely going to be dumping them. I would definitely much rather hold many more Jordan 1s in comparison to these. Keep in mind that StockX does require you to ship within 2 business days, so unless you know that you are getting shipments very fast or you do have in-store pairs, you will have to sell on eBay with 30-day handling enabled if you do plan to sell as soon as possible, like myself. But anyway, that will conclude it. Good luck on this drop. Feel free to leave a like if you did enjoy or perhaps learn a thing or two. Also subscribe and enable post notifications just to stay 100% updated on every hyped sneaker. And remember, if you guys do need proxies or Nike sneakers accounts, be sure to check the links in the description for TARS and Kip proxies. And of course, follow my Twitter, KeithAdam10, and personals for you, so you always stay 100% updated on everything. But with that, I'll see you guys later. Enjoy the rest of your day. And again, good luck on this drop. I have a lot of confidence in you guys considering the high stock.